everybody, and here we are back in one of our favourite green places, Melbourne's Royal Botanic Gardens. We just love it here.
We do, Jo. The wonders of nature, which is fitting because today we're focusing on the extraordinary, Daz.
Like Jack, people with total face recall, which I find extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's called super recognisers, and they literally do not ever forget a face.
And we're also looking at left-handers and whether they really are superior to us mere mortals.
And we meet the wonder pets adding joy to aged care. But first, we've got to kick it off with an extraordinary love of yours, Dr. Nick.
Yes, because, Dr. Nick, you really are a riddle wrapped in a mystery, inside an enigma. You like flesh-eating bugs and really spicy food.
Oh, my gosh, have you seen it, Jack? You're just slathering the hot sauce on your food. I think I've seen you bring your own.
Yeah, well, that's right. I really love a bit of chilli, Jo. And chilli not only adds an extra burn to your life, it adds some extra fire to your health. If you thought there were only 3 varieties of hot sauce, mild, medium and hot, you are gravely mistaken. At his Collingwood store, Matt Garthwaite stocked 300 hot sauces from around the world, including his own homemade range. And he reckons he can win over anyone with the right bottle.
The first thing I always say is, like, it's like a wine store. Not every bottle of wine is for you, you know? So we're going to narrow down some quick options. We first talk about where they feel comfortable with heat, something they would use on a day-to-day, and then what flavour profile. So smoky, sweet, savoury, sour is our starting points, and then we can go from there.
And you talk about what you call the 3 waves of hot sauces. Tell me about those. What are those 3 waves?
Yeah, so you can kind of break down the hot sauce industry into 3 different sections. So the first wave is what a lot of people know as like your table sauces, say your Tabasco, like vinegar forward, fermented chilies.
Just the stuff you buy off the shelf.
Yeah. And then we got into the death era, which was like the scary labels and the extreme heats, but flavour wasn't a priority then. What we specialise in is the 3rd wave, and it's all about flavour. We've got chilies naturally hot enough, like the Carolina Reaper.
The Carolina Reaper.
Yes, we're going to try some of that a bit later.
Oh,
but,
okay. Contrary to popular belief, too much spicy food doesn't kill your taste buds. In fact, if you can handle the heat, it's actually good for you. The chemical that makes chili hot, capsaicin, is loaded with antioxidants, and the sensation of spice causes the body to release endorphins.
Chili is something you get addicted to. Like, it's when you have it, it's very hard to go back.
So, Matt, if we've had too much chili, the mouth's burning, what can we do?
To be honest, nothing's really going to help you. But the best thing is citric acid. So, like lemon juice, lime juice, grapefruit juice.
The last thing I can think about having after a burning mouth is having citric acid.
Yeah, you want to swish it around in your mouth to break down the oils. It might increase the heat at first, but spit it out or swallow it and it'll go away. You want to get it away from the glands. All
right, Matt, so I gather we're going to start at the more gentle end of the spectrum. Tell me about this one. What have we got here?
So Spiceland is our mildest option. You're going to get cumin, some chipotle, so a little bit of smokiness. Roasted capsicum.
And so just tell me, why am I trying it on a piece of paper, not with some food? That doesn't make sense.
I guess the quickest answer towards that is we are focusing on the flavours. When you have it on food, it's going to change. This is straight.
Right, well, let's give this one a go.
There you go.
That is delicious.
Thank you.
That is absolutely delicious. It's smoky, it's tasty, it's got a nice bit of heat in there, but it's not blowing my head off.
Yep.
I love that one.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to the next one. What's this one called?
Pichango Tango. So this is our...
Pichango Tango.
Pichango Tango. And it's a fruit base with peaches and mango, red habanero chili, and a Caribbean spice blend.
Oh, wow. That's sweeter. I'm not joking. There is a bit of heat there. So there is a bit of heat.
Yep.
It's sweeter. It's still got a smoky flavour to it.
Yes. Yeah. So habaneros are developing style chili. So you might find this okay now, but the more you eat of this, the hotter it will get.
This is a bit scary. This is green.
Yeah.
What's this one?
So this one is our hot option, and it's a dill pickle hot sauce.
A dill pickle hot sauce.
Yeah.
So I heard you say that there's pickle juice in here. Now, people often talk about pickle juice for treating muscles and muscle cramp. Is that going to help me?
Yeah, most definitely. And the chilies themselves also help, high in vitamin C, vitamin A.
Excellent. All right, well, let's give that one a try. This is fabulous. They're so different. It's so tasty. It's got that heat in there still. It's not overpowering. I think that one is absolutely delicious. I'm getting a little bit anxious about this one because we're getting towards the end of the line. What have we got here?
So this is our latest release, Cherry Cherry Bang Bang.
It's the bang bang bit that scares me.
It's the bang
Cherry
bang.
is fine.
It's definitely a jump up from where we've been.
Okay, wish me luck.
All the best.
Whoa, you feel that when you swallow it, all right? Yeah, that certainly has more kick to it.
Yeah.
But it hasn't lost the flavour.
Flavour's the priority. Yeah.
There's the power in the chilli, but it's delicious.
And the cherry's a bit of a rounded tartness.
Wow, that is... and it is pretty hot.
Yeah, it's only going to build.
I'm glad that I have now survived to the hottest sauce that you have.
Well, I thought you may have said that, so I've saved one more just in case. We've got Hellfire's Fiery Fool.
OK, tell me what we've got in here. What sort of chilli have we got?
Carolina Reaper, Trinidad Scorpions, the Ghost Pepper.
It's something about a combination of reapers and ghost peppers and scorpions. This does not sound good. Come on, then.
It's 85% chili to the bottom.
Oh, only a small bit. Yeah, that's plenty.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness, that's hot. Yes, eyes watering, nose starting to run.
Quite rich in flavour.
I can still speak. Just. So it's flavoursome, but oh my word, that is hot.
Well, that is a seriously good effort, Dr. Nick. The Hellfire's Fiery Full sauce. You've survived it and got through unscathed.
Well, it's particularly impressive, Dr. Nick, because that sauce had a touch of the Carolina Reaper. So exactly how hot was it?
Well, let me tell you, Jack.
Yes.
Let me tell you about the Scoville heat scale, which actually measures the heat in spicy foods like chilies and peppers, right? So, to give you some perspective, you've got your jalapeno peppers, which is 8,000 units. You've got your cayenne pepper, which is 50,000 units. The Carolina Reaper, 2.2 million units. You are not hooked up right. What is happening?
Something very wrong there. But what's even more disturbing is there was a Californian man who set a Guinness World Record by eating, get this, 10 Carolina Reapers in just 30 seconds. Wouldn't want to be at his place that night.
That sounds like a lot of pain. You can keep your Carolina Reaper all to yourself, Dr. Nick. I think we all recognise that spicy afterburn, not a lot of fun for me. Speaking of recognising, do you have that feeling where you see a face but you can't quite place where it maybe came from?
It happens to me all the time, to the point where I just assume I know everyone, just in case I actually do. Because I don't know.
It's a condition called facial blindness, or more properly, prosopagnosia, and it affects about 1 in 50 people to some extent, including just about everybody in my family.
So you and the whole family have that condition? Is that
Sorry, who are you?
I thought you were just rude.
Many people think that.
No. Well, on the flip side, there are those people that can recognise faces after just a few seconds, a fleeting glimpse. They make up about 1 to 2% of the population, and the people with this amazing recall are known as super recognisers.
Melbourne's David Screech Powell has always had a knack for remembering faces.
Yeah, I've always been able to recognise family members, distant family members that I haven't seen, or school people, primary school kids growing up, like 20 years later. My wife's always picking up on me picking out people from the crowd. I would walk past and I'd say, oh, well, that's so-and-so. She's always astounded as to the fact that I can pick people out. The faces, I'll never forget, and it's an instant reaction to their face. It's like I have to think about, oh, that's that person. There you are. You know, what are you doing here?
David never thought much of his handy skill until he stumbled upon a short online quiz.
I came across a test that was a super recogniser test. I didn't know what it was at the time. I took the test and it was a face matching test.
It was through acing this test that David ended up on the radar of University of New South Wales cognitive scientist Dr. James Dunn, a lead researcher in the relatively new scientific field of face recognition.
Super recognisers essentially are just people who are gifted at face recognition. So there are people, just like ordinary people like you and I, who seem to do better at remembering faces than most people, and sometimes after really brief encounters. So we seem to think that super recognisers might make up about 1 to 2% of the population based on the current scientific understanding. We think it's largely genetic and not something that can be acquired through training or experience. And so we're trying to understand what makes them so special, with the idea that it might help us understand expertise in general, what makes some people naturally gifted on some abilities than others.
Through their free online test, UNSW have tracked down a large cohort of people just like David, allowing Dr. Dunn to closely examine how super recognisers observe and recall faces.
So using this technology, we can see the world through the eyes of a super recogniser. So we have this forward-facing camera that sees the world as they see it. And then on the inside, we have two infrared cameras that point towards the eye so we can see where they're looking in their environment. It seems that most people are drawn to the eyes, that people naturally spend a lot of time attending to the eyes. It's a very important cue for attention and social cue. But we also know that super recognisers also explore the face a little bit more than the ordinary person. So they seem to look at other features of the face. They might notice a very distinguished feature. For example, there might be a unique ears or a facial shape, and they seem to be tuning into those details a little bit better than most people as well.
Some part of the brain, some part of me is always scanning for a familiar face in the crowd, and every face is very different. Some people have really thick eyebrows, some people have eye shapes that are different, ears, noses slant to the side, lips. So everyone's face is very different, and I guess the aspect of my ability is I pick up on those little subtle differences. So twins as well. Twins, we can spot the difference of twins. I don't see it as a superpower as such. I just see it as something I can do every day, really. I don't look at it as like special, but it is cool to have because you can always spot the difference or see something before anyone else or react differently.
David may not consider it a superpower, but people with his skill have been called on to help fight crime. Police forces in the UK and Germany have successfully used super recognisers to identify criminals in CCTV footage.
Artificial intelligence technology for face recognition has come a long way in recent years. And so the accuracy on those measures have gotten really, really good. But they're only really good in very particular circumstances. So, for example, SmartGate at the border, where you have a camera situated at a certain distance, you know the lighting conditions, that technology is very, very good under those circumstances and can make a large number of decisions highly accurately. But when you deal with situations with like CCTV footage, or when you're out in the normal environment where lighting and angles and stuff aren't so good, in those situations, AI is not doing so well, and super recognisers seem to outperform those technology there.
We've done a lot of testing. We've proven we can do what we can do, and I think, yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be a part of any help to find missing people or chase down criminals. Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, we love encouraging everybody to get out and register as an organ donor and to give blood, both truly life-saving acts, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, and much needed, Joe, because hospitals have experienced this big surge in demand for blood and plasma products, but the number of donors has actually plateaued.
Well, the good news is for my fellow tattoo-loving tribe, we now only have to wait 1 week after a new tattoo instead of the 4 months that it used to be.
Yeah, it follows a study in New South Wales. It's a little bit like the study that showed that people who lived in the UK in the mad cow era, people like myself, can now safely donate.
Well, I love it because people with tattoos, like myself, are not fearful of needles, which makes us perfect donors,
That's a
right?
good point, yeah.
And there are so many of us with tattoos now that you don't want to eliminate them, right? But you need to make sure that you got your tattoo at a licensed parlour or a cosmetic clinic. It can't be one that your mate did at a party, OK?
And just remember, if you're donating, drink plenty of fluid before and after. And because it's best to rest the donor arm for a couple of hours to stop bruising, maybe choose the left arm if you're right-handed and the other way round if you're a lefty.
Well, 1 in 10 people are lefties, including most of the former US presidents.
Really?
Take from that what you will. And Hines set out to discover the many ways in which it's right to go left.
Every day in her Brisbane studio, Dee Gillette Cox creates breathtaking works of art by doing something she would never have dared to do as a child, using her left hand.
When I was a wee girl in primary school, it was apparently a heinous, hideous, evil thing to be left-handed. So what they would do when I was caught using my left hand to write or the like, I mean, I'm 5. What was I doing? Drawing things? I don't know. But I would have to stand on top of my desk and then they would beat the back of my legs with a wooden ruler to punish me. I remember bleeding from being hit so hard, and I remember the humiliation. And I was 5, so I super remember being scared that I'd pee my pants while I was standing on that desk being smacked. It was horrible. It was truly traumatisingly horrible.
It's hard to believe today, but until about 50 years ago, this sort of treatment was common for left-handers all over the world. As far back as the Stone Age, lefties have only made up about 10% of the population, which means throughout history, this trait has been considered bad luck at best and just plain wicked at worst.
I research a lot about art. I did discover that Eve, as in Adam and Eve, is historically portrayed as having 2 left hands, because having one regular left hand didn't make the woman evil enough. That was shocking to discover that.
It turns out that you can't tell whether someone's good or evil by looking at which hand they favour. But genetic epidemiologist Professor David Evans says there's a lot we can learn from studying this trait.
Whether you're right or left-handed is correlated with what's going on in the brain. So, for example, people who are right-handers are much more likely to be very lateralised in terms of their brain function and have their language centres in the left hemisphere. Whereas individuals who are left-handed, it's more likely that they have less lateralisation and you have language in both hemispheres rather than just the left. If we've got a good understanding of laterality in the brain, then this has implications for developing treatments in the case of stroke, epilepsy, or trauma, where you've got damage to a particular part of the brain.
In 2020, Professor Evans and his colleagues at the University of Queensland collaborated with the QIMR, Berghofer Medical Research Institute, to conduct the largest study to date into the genetic factors that determine handedness.
We found 41 genes which were associated with being a left-hander and 7 genes that were associated with being ambidextrous. So the reason why that's significant is that nobody knows what causes left-handedness. So if we can find genes that are involved in somehow determining whether someone is left-handed or not, that provides us with clues as to the underlying biology of why people become left-handers.
But it turns out genetics are only a tiny piece of the puzzle.
Handedness is a really unusual trait in that it's mostly determined by the environment. So normally when you look at traits like height or various diseases, normally it's kind of around about 50% genetic and 50% environmental, but handedness is really unusual in that it's predominantly due to environmental factors.
Just what those environmental factors are remains unclear. But as Sydney-based lefty Steve McWork will tell you, there's no question we live in a right-hander's world.
Back when our youngest daughter, who's left-handed, was 7, she decided one night she wanted to feed the dog. And we went to open the can of dog food and she struggled with the right-handed, the standard can opener, the only can opener we had, and we ended up having major tantrums. And of course the dog had to be fed by somebody else.
Steve's fruitless search for a left-handed can opener inspired him to start up his online business, Lefties, Australia's only retailer of left-handed products.
So the most popular product group that we have is scissors. When we use a pair of scissors, we are pushing with the thumb and pulling with the fingers. And what that does is it moves on the pivot to cause the blades to actually rub against each other and cut the piece of paper. If you're using the wrong scissors in those hands, then it causes the blades to splay apart and they don't cut.
Since starting up in 2003, Steve's little family business has grown to stock over 300 products, including left-handed veggie peelers, garden tools and measuring jugs. But he reckons most right-handers would be surprised at just how many other everyday items aren't left-hand friendly.
Well, where do you start? The turnstiles at the train station, you know, when you put your Opal card, that's the right hand. The microwave oven, the FPOS machine, if you're swiping your card, the swipe slot is on the right-hand side of the keypad. Chainsaws and circular saws, the whippersnipper and the lawnmower, the zip pull on those, power drills, all those sorts of things, they're all set just for the right-hander.
Despite the many little challenges, Steve couldn't be prouder to be part of this exclusive club. After all, he's in pretty good company.
1 out of 4 astronauts was left-handed, so, double the normal population. We have, perfect role models for us of examples of creativity, like, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. 6 of the last 8 US presidents were all left-handed. As a group, we're adaptable, whether it be through necessity or ability, and that lends us to be able to work with whatever comes our way.
I wish I could get those old teachers who beat me for being left-handed, my sewing teacher who would look at my work that had 4 dodgy right-hand stitches from when she was watching me and 7 good left-handed ones for when her vision was elsewhere. All of them, I'd like to line them all up and go, right, everybody, excuse me, do you see what the hand does now?
Das, that makes me think of that old saying, if you had 2 left feet, if you're a bad dancer, or 2 left hands, if you couldn't sew or paint. Being left-handed used to be a real stigma.
You don't hear that said so much these days, Jack. Now, how about this story for you? You know my thoughts on snakes, not my favourite reptile by any stretch, but did you see that story about the 2-headed snake?
Yes, well, today is all about the extraordinary, and this is definitely extraordinary. So this western rat snake was found in a backyard in Texas in 2016, and it was named Pancho and Lefty because it had 2 heads.
And it's safely locked up in a zoo and it can stay there as far as I'm concerned, Jack. No problem with that from me. They discovered it's also got 2 brains as well, so how it navigates its way around is beyond me.
Well, it didn't really navigate its way around successfully because it actually had to be taken out of its exhibit because it kept trying to go 2 different ways.
Yeah, well, 2 brains, 2 fangs,
heads.
that's enough for me. Something a bit more my style, Jack, is dogs. And up next, we talk about the push to get more pets in aged care, next on the House of Wellness.
Find me a person who hasn't experienced uneven, blemished skin at least once in their life. Any takers? Anyone? Exactly. Everyone knows the juggle of wanting to look after your skin, but also needing that bit of coverage to take on the day. The cult status Nude by Nature Natural Mineral Cover Blemish Control Foundation is now available for those with blemish-prone skin. It's enriched with 100% natural salicylic acid. This ingredient is clinically proven to help unclog pores and clear out dead skin cells. This foundation also delivers an even complexion, covers redness, and minimises the appearance of pores whilst purifying the skin behind the scenes. There are no nasties like talc, parabens, or silicons that can clog your skin. There's just high-performing actives that are 100% good for you. Foundation is a staple makeup product, but gone are the days of that cakey face that really did a disservice to our skin. Nobody has perfect skin, and I, for one, am so excited that we are finally celebrating natural beauty with natural products.
Today we're focusing on the extraordinary, and there really is nothing more extraordinary than the human brain. There's still so much we don't know about it, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, that's so true, Jack, because it's the most complex structure we've discovered in the universe so far. So it makes sense that surgery on the brain is one of the toughest medical things we can do.
And I would imagine whilst having surgery on your brain, you'd like to be asleep. That's my guess, right? Yes, yes. But recently, a 35-year-old man underwent successful brain surgery to remove a tumour. And not only was he awake, he was playing the saxophone.
Seriously?
And it's only possible because the brain itself has no pain receptors. So all you need is some local for the scalp and the skull. And it's actually the second saxophone playing awake operation that's been done, and others have been recorded playing the violin or even guitar.
Wow.
The surgery occurred in Rome, and as the name suggests, it's called awake surgery, but it sort of gives you a bit of the creeps, I think.
Yeah, well, the patients were OK, but the audience found it very unnerving, actually. But if you're interested, what he played was the theme from the movie Love Story and the Italian national anthem.
And I'm happy to have music playing while the surgery's going on, but I want the full anaesthetic. I don't want to know anything about it. That's too intense for me.
Well, one thing we all need after a major operation is comfort, and we certainly get that from our pets. But sadly, many elderly people are forced to give up their pets when they move into aged care.
It's an exercise for the day, you understand? I rely on her for a lot of things. Keeps my head safe, you know. When I first got her, I used to do self-harm all the time. And then my mate said, you need a dog to look, you know, something you can look after. So I've never cut myself again. You coming or what? Come on. It's hard to explain, you know. She's my buddy. Hey, Bum. Yeah, it's... Inside, it makes me happy all the time. Without her, totally different. You know, you're dragging your feet around, you're grumpy or you're miserable. But when you've got your dog, it's brings so much joy to you, I think.
Well, at LifeView, we allow pets to move in with their owners. It just makes that transition easier when you're moving from a home, because you give up a lot to move into aged care. You shouldn't also have to give up that relationship that you have, that human-animal bond, to move into care. And somebody like Paul, he wouldn't settle without his dog, Bonnie, and that's the same for a lot of people. Our pets have been our companions for many, many years, and to have to give them up, it's really sad and heartbreaking.
Everyone wants to pet her. Most people. I think there's only 2 people in here that don't like dogs. Everyone else just, oh, come here, you know, I'm me dog, you know. They all fall in love with her. So I think she puts a smile on a lot of people.
They're shocked at how much he's grown in a few months. That's normally a conversation starter. Every time he comes in, they're like, oh, he's grown bigger. Is he going to get much bigger? Because when he first came in, he was just a little round fluff ball.
Hello. We are a pet-friendly workplace, so staff can bring their pets to work to interact with the residents. And there's also rules around that. With everything, there's always rules. But those pets brighten residents' days as well. There'll be residents who say, let me look after your pet for the day as if it was their own.
I love him dearly. I don't have him as often as I'd like, but, you know, he'll come in. He sort of knows my place so very well. And apparently he sort of raced through about 3 corridors to get to my place this morning.
There will be days where they might be going through some personal or hard times, where I find if I sit and spend some one-on-one time with them and give them emotional support from myself, it's not as effective as when you have Archie, because he just gives them that affection. He'll jump up on their laps and have a cuddle and give them a sneaky little kiss, and I feel that interaction between the resident and the dog is just more effective. It's like therapeutics.
You know what his name is? No. Marvin. Posh name. Posh name.
Having animals around really lifts the vibe of the home. Even those living with dementia, it brings back memories of a pet they may have had, makes everybody happy and smiling. And that's really what we want to see. We want people to be as happy as possible each and every day and bring back good memories.
Do you want to come on that? Most of our residents, they've had pets all their life, so most of the time they'll interact with him before they interact with me. So you'll have those residents that might not talk much at all, but they'll interact with him more. So it's seeing the pleasure it gives them. And Marvin enjoys it, so even when he's not with me, everyone asks, where's Marvin, where's Marvin?
I just think more dogs should be in places like this, because there's old people that need the dogs. You know, I mean, I know what she does for me, and if there was a few more dogs around here, I think it'd be a happy household. So I think that rule should change a bit.
Because it is communal living, not everybody is going to be accepting of a pet moving in. But as long as the resident can continue to care for that pet, including walking, feeding, veterinary care, etc., we really believe that it's a great policy to have, and we encourage other providers to do so.
You lived on a farm?
Yeah. I wouldn't have lasted here without me dog. There's no way. You know, it drove me nuts. But, you know, there's only the 2 of us, you know. I've looked after her all her life. So we complete together, you know. It's best medicine for me, yeah.
Manuka honey is quite different to regular honey. It is actually produced by the nectar of the leptospermum plant, which is native to Australia and New Zealand. It has really powerful antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties for wound care and healing, thanks to the naturally occurring chemical methylglyoxal, or MgO. And the higher the MgO, the more potent the honey's bioactive properties are. Barnes Natural's 100% Australian active Manuka honey has a range of strengths. Whilst it might seem strange to give Manuka honey a rating, it's a really helpful guide for picking the right honey for your needs. MgO 100+ and MgO 300+ are perfect for everyday use. Think of supercharging your breakfast or adding it to a cup of tea. MgO 850 and 1050+ are ideal for soothing sore throats. Or take the honey as a preventative health ingredient, just like you would supplements. It truly is food as medicine. You can also make homemade face masks. Simply apply the honey directly to your skin, leave it on for around 10 minutes and then wash it off with a warm cloth and enjoy soft, hydrated skin. Spring is the perfect time to rethink and reset our health goals. So whether you're beginning a new fitness regime or kickstarting a healthy eating routine, adding Manuka honey to your diet has a range of benefits that you'll notice in the short term and also the long term.
Dr. Nick, I admit I have a bit of a sweet tooth. I love honey, and isn't it delightful to see all the bees buzzing about here at the Botanic Gardens?
It's gorgeous, Jack, and the turning of the seasons makes us think about the passing of time and that great circle of life thing. While I reckon you're still very much in the spring of life, in the end, winter comes for all of us.
Well, I prefer to think that I'm in the summer of my life, Dr. Nick, but it did get me thinking about being organised as we age and the things that maybe we need to do that we haven't.
Yeah, we don't always get around to important things like planning our funerals or our end-of-life health choices. It's such a tricky conversation, even though it shouldn't really be.
I agree. I did my will as soon as my kids were born. What about you?
Getting around to it sometime.
Well, you better hurry up, Nick.
Well, trying to point something out here.
Well, don't worry, because up next we'll chat to the experts about how to take the worrying out of wills.
Over 50% of Australian adults don't have a will. What's more concerning is that close to 60% of Australian parents don't have a will. They haven't specified who they would like to look after their children in the event of their passing. That means that anyone could come forward, whether it's the person that the parent would want to look after their child or not, and can make an application for guardianship. Without a will, there's a statutory formula to determine what happens to your assets after you pass away and who acts as your executor. So it's not so much that the government gets your assets as it is that they determine how they'll be divided. And it isn't so much that your money won't end up with the right people, but the process for getting there can be a lot longer. Where you have financial dependents who need access to those funds immediately or quickly, that can lead to a really difficult situation where there isn't a will and there isn't a clear set of instructions, because the process for getting to that final decision can be a lot longer. The options for writing a will are quite varied. On the one hand, you have do-it-yourself will kits, which are cheap and affordable, but rely on you using the product correctly and have no legal oversight. Or on the other hand, there are specialist estate lawyers who can often be quite costly and provide a product that's more complex than most Australians need. Recently, we've seen the emergence of digital platforms that allow people to write a will in a way that is affordable, accessible, and easy to use. The downfall with these platforms is that some of them have no legal oversight and therefore, again, similar to a do-it-yourself will kit, rely on Australians who have no knowledge of estate law using them correctly. Because most of us aren't legally trained, a lot of us don't know what can and cannot be included in a will. We often see people trying to leave part of their estate to their pets or trying to do other things that the law won't allow you to do. That's really the importance of having some form of oversight when writing your will. So a grant of probate is the process of validating a will at court. We see a lot of Australians choosing to leave charitable bequests and choosing to leave gifts to charity in their will. And that's really important. A lot of people don't know that legacy giving and gifts in wills are the lifeblood of Australian not-for-profits. In fact, over 20% of total national fundraising comes from gifts in wills. So even though a will is a set of instructions that you want to occur after you pass away, it's an amazing opportunity to express what's meant the most to you throughout your life and to show care and love to those who have supported you and have meant the world to you while you've been alive.
When I design a recipe, or even when I'm just thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch, taste is number one. A very close second is health, but a meal is only as healthy as the gut that processes it. The gut microbiome is made up of billions of bacteria that not only help us digest our food, but support other important systems in our body, including our immune health and our mental health. Things like diet and medication can throw off that delicate balance of good bacteria. The Melrose Gut Support Blend is a unique formula that contains all three biotics to help maintain optimal gut health and rebalance our microbiomes. Number one, prebiotics. These are the food for our good gut bacteria, which leads to number two, probiotics, also known as the good gut bacteria, and they will multiply and thrive if fed the right nutrients. Thirdly, postbiotics, which naturally occur when probiotics digest and break down their prebiotic food. New research shows their potential to reduce inflammation. With Melrose Gut Support Blend, there's no nasty green flavour. Enjoy the apple taste simply on its own in water or as part of your smoothies, yogurt or healthy treats. And because it contains all natural concentrated plant fibres, it's perfect for those days where you don't hit your 5 serves of veg. Our gut converts what we eat into nutrients our body can use, which is why it's so important to look after it, so that those tasty, healthy meals we cook aren't eaten in vain.
Hinesy there on the power of probiotics. Now, Darcy, you know, I'm obsessed with gut health. And one of the things I do to look after my gut is stay active. I love to run. I know you're a big walker.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of the bike these days, Joe. Back in the spin class, but conscious of the steps. I find myself checking them daily just to make sure you're getting enough exercise in.
Well, Darcy, here's a great incentive to get your steps up. September is Steptember, which is all about getting our bodies moving in support of people with cerebral palsy. So head along to the Steptember website to register, get your mates to support your fundraising and get your body moving.
Well, Joe, what a wonderful cause it is, and it helps raise money for research and assistive technologies as well at the same time. I don't know about you, Joe, but I always find myself pre-exercise wanting to eat something but not wanting to eat too much. Trying to get that balance right, it's pretty tough.
Well, I don't eat before I exercise, which is, I'm sure, bad. I have a really strong coffee to get me going. I don't think that's probably very healthy. I don't know.
Well, have a listen to Zoe and Hines, who are about to tell us the right food to fuel up.
We have about 600 muscles in our body, Zoe, and they're not just responsible for keeping us moving. They also help control things like our breathing, temperature, even chewing.
You will definitely be flexing the chewing muscle today because I am making my banana bread and it's gluten-free.
As long as you're willing to swap with one of my choc chip cookies.
We'll think about that.
Well, while you think about that, I'll tell you what our recipes have in common, in particular, our hero ingredients. Now, that is the banana for you and the oats for me. They are both rich sources of the nutrient magnesium.
Ah, the mighty mineral. Now, while we're talking about muscle function, magnesium and muscles are a match made in heaven.
Magnesium is one of only 7 essential macro minerals that we need to consume in large amounts.
It helps regulate muscle contractions and relaxation. So if you have tight, cramping or spasming muscles, it might be an indication you need a little bit more magnesium.
Those symptoms sound like a recipe for disaster and not one for this kitchen.
Absolutely not, Luke, because we're surrounded by real healthy food where magnesium is in abundance. Think about avocado, green leafy vegetables or nuts and seeds.
As we always like to say, Zoe, eat the rainbow.
You can also find magnesium in supplement form, specifically formulated to help relieve muscle spasms and cramps and support nervous system function.
Look for a convenient tablet format with added active vitamin B6 to support energy production and a healthy stress response in the body.
Speaking of feeling stressed, I'm about to get very stressed if I don't get a piece of that delicious-looking banana bread.
Get Nourished is brought to you by Bioceuticals Ultra Muscle Ease P5P, specially formulated for muscle function. Found exclusively behind the counter. Ask your pharmacist for Ultra Muscle Ease P5P tablets.
A couple of weeks ago on the House of Wellness, we referenced a story about a potential cure for type 1 diabetes. It has its origins from the Royal Adelaide Hospital back in 2002.
It was the meeting of two incredible medical minds. Dr. John Greenwood was developing game-changing artificial skin that would eliminate skin grafts and serious infection in burns cases. And in the same hospital, Dr. Toby Coates was investigating new ways to control diabetes 1.
They found by combining their expertise, they were able to put themselves on a path to conquer type 1 diabetes. They've invented an artificial skin patch which is implanted into a patient's arm, and it's truly groundbreaking.
Yeah, on the back of that story, Jack, we referenced diet and lifestyle in relation to type 1 diabetes, which is not related. So over to you, Dr. Nick Carr, to explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, great question, Das, because they're both problems with the body regulating sugar or glucose. Now, type 1 is what's called an autoimmune disease, and it can happen to absolutely anyone, comes on when you're younger and has nothing to do with diet and lifestyle. It needs insulin to treat it. There's no cure, which is why this artificial skin from Adelaide is so important. Now, type 2, it's the more common kind. It tends to come on more slowly. It's strongly related to family history. And this is the one where the risk is hugely increased by sedentary lifestyle or poor diet.
Thanks, Nick, for that clarification. We appreciate it. If you want to find out more about our artificial skin story, head to the House of Wellness website for all the information on that one. And what an enjoyable day it's been at the Royal Botanic Gardens here in Melbourne.
A little windy, but the celebration of spring continues in our latest magazine with the stunning Francesca Hung on the cover.
You can catch myself with Gerald Quickly on House of Wellness Radio every Sunday.
Thank you, as always, to Dr. Nick Carr, to Jacqui Felgate and to Joe Stanley. The wind's going to blow us away. And to our friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time.